Since you are watching this video or picked up the book it's based on, then our presumption is that you want to become a more compassionate human being. But the question, do you want to be compassionate, is an important one for us to explore right at the outset. If we do not think about the implications of the question, then the obvious answer is, yes, of course, as a good human being, I want to be compassionate. Thinking about this question more deeply, however, may give us cause to doubt our original certainty. We might discover that we do not really want to be compassionate. At first glance, compassion sounds like an attractive virtue, something that we feel we ought to cultivate if we are an intelligent, sensitive human being. It appeals to the image of our better self. But once we reflect on how compassion really takes birth, being willing to face ourselves, our destructive habits, and our selfishness, our initial enthusiasm might start to wane. We will quickly realize that compassion goes against a deeply entrenched habit of doing what we want and avoiding things we do not like. Even though we might come to see that this is a prison that limits our full potential as a human being, it is still a very comfortable and familiar prison. And so, when our advocate, our own deepest wisdom, hands us the key to get out of the prison, we might just leave it lying on the floor of our cell and stay where we are. But the key point here is that genuine compassion is about getting to know and accepting this conflict in ourselves. That one part of us wants to be compassionate and another part wants to stay selfish. If we can face this dilemma honestly, with a touch of humour, then the real journey of compassion can begin. This journey is being willing to embrace our messy, imperfect humanity, to begin to love and accept the parts of us that do not cooperate, that do not want to be good and virtuous, and that just want to stay in the same old familiar prison. We might come to see that these parts have a life of their own, and they have been around for a long time, so we will need to approach the path of compassion in a gradual, realistic way. Compassion, by its very nature, requires us to face the suffering of the world. We start by facing our own suffering. Once we do this, then we are in a better position to recognize and face the suffering of others. We might prefer, however, to live in so-called blissful ignorance, out of touch with the suffering of ourselves and those around us. Many of us live this way and gloss over the pain and difficulties in life, staying busy and finding ways to distract ourselves. But what do we mean by suffering? It is a rather loaded word implying great pain and strife. However, suffering can be anything from a nagging sense of not feeling right, an underlying sense of dissatisfaction, to profound anguish and grief. More inconvenient still, compassion by its very nature requires us to do something to relieve suffering as best we can, wherever we encounter it. Again, we start with ourselves, and then once we know how to relieve our own suffering, we are in a much better position to help others. Acting to relieve suffering, however, often requires us to act against our own self-interest and to go against the grain of long-held habits of self-absorption that are painful to break. In short, practicing compassion requires us to face our selfishness and to act in the service of the greater good, rather than in the service of our own limiting desires. Practicing compassion requires us to be brutally honest about ourselves and our activity in the world, and this takes great courage. Do you still want to be more compassionate? The important thing is for you to explore this question for yourself. You can do this by engaging with Practice 1 at the end of the introductory chapter in Compassion-Based Living course. It can be useful to explore the different layers of response when we reflect on the question of whether we want to be compassionate. The first layer might be, yes, of course, I want to be a good and understanding citizen. The next layer might be, I am not sure, that is asking a lot. I am fond of doing things I like, and I am very clear about the things I do not like. The next layer might be uncertainty and fear of changing what is comfortable and familiar. A deeper layer might be, no way, I want to stay just the way I am and forget all of this compassion stuff. It is not for me. But if we are patient and continue reflecting on this question, we might touch a deep, barely audible voice that says, Yes, I really do want to be compassionate because then I will fulfill my deepest potential. The important thing is for you to go through the process of reflection yourself and see what comes up for you. So far, we have been focusing on the difficulties surrounding compassion training. On the plus side, however, cultivating compassion generates more openness, joy, and ease in how we live in the world. Our problems and challenges become more workable, and this can result in a deep and abiding well-being. By living compassionately, we are living more in touch with ourselves, those around us, and the wider world. We live from the understanding that all life is interdependent, and how we think, speak, and act affects other people, insects, animals, and the earth we depend on. It results in a deep sense of love and care for the extraordinary life that we are part of. This is the fruition of the path of genuine compassion, and this book, Compassion-Based Living Course, is about how to tread this path. Do you want a practical guide to living a compassionate life? Then we have the perfect book for you, Compassion-Based Living by Choden and Heather Regan-Addis, available from Mantra Books. This book is a practice-based approach to compassion meditation training that equips readers with skills to bring compassion directly into their everyday lives. It sits within the secular mindfulness tradition and is a unique fusion of Buddhist, evolutionary, and psychological approaches to compassion, and includes insights from neuroscience. It is based on the author's experiences over the last decade of training hundreds of people in compassion meditation, including at master's degree level. It proceeds gradually, building capacity in stages. It starts with mindfulness and proceeds to self-compassion, and then compassion for others, with a final chapter focusing on socially engaged compassion. It is a companion to their earlier successful book, published by O-Books, Mindfulness-Based Living Course. Thank you for watching, follow for future videos, and we will see you next time.